Everyone, I'm gonna just give it a couple more minutes. I know we're waiting for one more commissioner, and we do have a guest speaker tonight. So I'm just gonna give it a couple more minutes, and then we'll get started. Okay, I think in the interest of everyone's time, um, if Commissioner Jones, I know he said he was gonna join, I sent a reminder. Hopefully he'll join in a bit, but we do have a quorum with myself and Commissioner Van Wy, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. And because we have a guest speaker tonight, and I don't want to make people wait for too long. So Commissioner Van Wy, are you ready?
Yes, sorry. I am I had a work event go a little bit long and I'm trying to get back to my computer. So figured I'd stay off video so folks don't have to watch me walk through the city. But I am here and excited to hear from our guest speaker and to get to our busy agenda tonight.
So the first thing I do actually need us to do a quick sort of roll call and a vote. So our PSE meeting was announced the 10 days prior, but we were fussing around with our agenda. So right now I have it up as a proposed agenda. So I'd like to move to make tonight's agenda official. I'd like a second on that.
I second that motion.
Okay, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we will go ahead and start with our now official agenda. I do see that we have Anna Meyer. I think I see in the attendees. Sean, if you can go ahead and promote Anna, and we have some students, or one of the students is going to talk to us about some advocacy they've done for the Green New Deal. And we're here to learn more about that. Joe, I don't know if you have any introductions you want to do for it, or you're more the one that made this connection for us.
Happy to, yeah, very quickly. And Anna, I'm sure you have much more to say about your work than I do. But I know that in the last couple of months, there's been some really excellent advocacy from students here in Washington, D.C. to push for action around moving forward the Green New Deal within their communities. Anna, I believe that you've spoken at a couple of other ANC events, and I'm really excited to hear about the great work that you've been doing, and to see how we can help in our capacity as commissioners to help further that advocacy. So, with that, Anna, I'd love to hear more about what you've been doing.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. My name is Anna. I'm a junior at School Without Walls High School, and I'm one of the co-leaders of our Green New Deal for Schools initiative that started in October. So a little background about who we are. We are one of the many hundreds of hubs of the Sunrise Movement that exist across the country as part of a nationwide youth-led organization focused on climate justice. And we, because we're high school students, are, along with other students across the country, focusing on climate justice, especially in schools. So we decided to take the Green New Deal for Schools on in October when we were thinking about how we wanted to most productively spend our year as a hub. And the Green New Deal for Schools has 5 main pillars that we see as imperative to a safe, equitable school system: climate disaster plans when climate disaster inevitably strikes, climate curriculum so that students can learn how to be global citizens in terms of climate justice, free meals for all students that should be sustainable and locally sourced, pathways to green jobs so that students can join the sustainable workforce once they leave high school if they don't want to go to college or even if they do, and safe, clean, and sustainable buildings, which DC unfortunately is very lacking in. So we launched this initiative in October, and our first step was going to the DC State Board of Education and writing a resolution. I took the lead in that. I had never written any type of policy, anything written in political language before. That was a great learning experience for me. We showed up to our first state board meeting in November, and we proposed our idea of having a Green New Deal for schools in DC. We gave them our resolution, and we had about 15 testimonies that first time. They were really receptive. That was great. We went back 2 more times, and then by January 17th exactly, I remember that date, I will forever, they unanimously passed our resolution, and that was a huge victory. However, unfortunately, the DC State Board of Education doesn't have any real power because DC is under the mayor's jurisdiction, and the state board exists as more of a theoretical body that gives recommendations on how DCPS should handle schooling. So it was an endorsement, but it didn't mean that anything was actually being implemented. So now we're in the process of attending numerous hearings. We have 2 coming up a week, like next week. We have 2 big hearings coming up, and getting the council to actually implement what we're asking for. So that's a little overview of what we've been doing in the last few months around this.
Sorry, and I'm drinking tea here because I am with the cold. What in particular, what kind of supports would you, or how could commissioners help support the efforts that you've been doing?
Yeah, so the more endorsements that we have, the better. One thing that we have discussed with other ANCs across the city is having individual ANCs pass their own Green New Deal for Schools resolution, which again would be basically just an endorsement saying that as a governing body, you all support this. And then that can be helpful in going to the council. The more support we have, the more likely they are to listen to us. The more you can talk about it, also the better. I know that some councils have, or ANCs have newsletters that they send out. The more buzz that there is about this, the more likely anything is actually gonna happen or get done. And we also, this is perhaps the easiest thing, we have a petition that we hope to get. Our goal is 1,000 signatures right now. That basically just says you support the Green New Deal for schools, that we can show to the council and show a lot of support across DC. Those are the main things.
Is the petition online? Is that a link you can share with us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I have one quick question, if you don't have an answer, totally fine. Maybe we can talk offline. But with the mayor's budget request coming out recently, I know that there has been some disappointment from folks in the education community with some of the details of that request. Did you see anything that you have been advocating for, any planks of the Green New Deal for schools reflected within that request? I haven't had a chance to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So if you have any initial reaction to it, I'd love to get your perspective.
I do have an initial reaction to that. One of the hearings that we're going to this week is Phil Mendelson's Committee of the Whole hearing on April 4th, which is a week from tomorrow. We're bringing as many students as we can bring. It looks like we'll have about 35 testify in person, which is very exciting. And to answer specifically your question about how the budget will impact the Green New Deal for schools, our biggest problem with it right now is how it's slashing operating budgets and decreasing buying power in individual schools. And while that doesn't directly impact the 5 demands of the Green New Deal for schools, other than climate curriculum, but that's pretty complicated, it does will decrease the quality of education for students. For example, School Without Walls is going to be losing 2 teachers, and we're lucky that we're only losing 2 teachers because many other schools are losing more. And we have an emphasis on climate change, of course, that is the primary thing the Sunrise Movement focuses on, but we also care so deeply about schools, and it is really, really concerning to think about the educational declines that will be the result of this budget. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. I share many of those same concerns, and I think later today in this meeting we're going to talk about our ANC's budget request to the committee or to the council, and having reviewed the budget a little bit from the mayor, I think that's something that I'd like to make sure we include coming from our ANC. So really appreciate your perspective, especially as someone who's going to be more impacted by it than I will. So thank you.
Of course, thank you.
So is this a specific action just for in DC, or is this like a nationwide action that you all are part of?
It is nationwide, which is super exciting because the
Yeah.
Sunrise Movement is a national organization. We were the second school district to pass a school board resolution, the first being Boulder, Colorado. And
That's
then
my hometown.
yeah, really, that's really funny.
Yeah.
And then in recent weeks, Evanston passed theirs. So we were the second out of three, and I have a feeling that they're going to keep coming, which is really exciting. And also worth saying, the Green New Deal for Schools is a national movement as well. Sunrise is also focusing on Congress. There also are other Green New Deals that are like in the works, but that is a whole different conversation.
That's very cool. I was looking up the website and noticed, I was like, oh, this is pretty big. um yeah, like what Commissioner Van Wy mentioned, we can definitely, I think when we talk about some of the budget initiatives that we'd like to pass on and encourage the council and the mayor to support, this is something we should consider, or in ways, and we can, I think we should review and look over the resolution that other ANCs have been passing to see if that's something that our ANC could also lend their support to.
That would be fantastic. I can send a follow-up email with all of these links and information.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And especially the link for the petition, because that's something we can share with our constituents and help get them more information.
Great. Thank you so much.
And then if you have any other questions, or if there's any questions from anyone else, this would certainly be a great time.
I do not have any more questions, but I am more than happy to answer questions from the public.
Yeah, I think we're usually a small meeting, so but this is something right.
Some of our school board meetings were huge. At one, we brought 80 people, which so exciting. We didn't have all of them testify, but we stayed late into the night for many. Like I got home around midnight, which is fine, but maybe not on a school night. So there is definitely merit in small meetings.
And we'll make sure that we send the recording around to everybody in the ANC. So even though there aren't a lot of people here, a lot of people will get to hear what you're saying. And I don't have any other additional questions. I just wanted to, again, thank you for your advocacy. It's always really inspiring for me to see, especially young people really picking up the torch and fighting for a better tomorrow. So thank you for doing that and for this incredible work. And I'm excited to sign that petition when I see it. So yeah, thank you for everything you're doing. It's really, really awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for all your support.
Awesome. And we have, I don't know if you see the note in our chat, but we can share items on our YouTube channel as well.
Cool.
All right, it was really great hearing from you, Anna, and learning more about this is really awesome to learn that DC School District is second to support this. That's a testament to your movement. It's also a testament to what an issue that we're, just because we're the nation's capital, we're also the District of Columbia, and something that we're taking very seriously. And it's really awesome to see our youth sort of being part of that movement forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night. You're
You
welcome
too.
to stay, but if you don't have to. Okay. So I did move around like the agenda we approved. Commissioner Van White, I did move up the resolution that you wanted to sort of present just in the interest of time, and if you're ready to I'm sort of going to turn that over to you to give some background on it and to introduce it. And I
Sure.
can, if it helps, would it help if I shared it on screen?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. And helpful since I can't quite get to my Google Drive super effectively while on a Zoom. Um,
I am sharing it, Sean, if you can give me the.
oh yeah, I see it on mine.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, this initiative this resolution is fairly straightforward. Later last year, council members Bonds and Mendelson introduced a bill that would pretty drastically restrict the ability of folks in DC to use the ballot initiative process, and that raises some serious concerns with me. The Ballot Initiative Act would draw a really fine and what I would argue is a not particularly accurate reading of a provision within our initiative process that does not allow an initiative that has a like material dollar cost. Um, Multiple courts have recognized that, or on multiple occasions, courts have recognized that that clause is meant to prevent like a ballot initiative budget. But the implementation of anything at the city level is going to cost $1, whether it's paying someone to put something online or do outreach. Nothing is going to be entirely free. And the way this initiative or the way this bill is written, it would essentially prevent any ballot initiative from moving forward. And I think that would be a really grave disservice to the people of Washington, D.C. I think we have one of the stronger ballot initiative movements in the country and have managed to do some really incredible things over the last couple of years through the ballot initiative process. And ballot initiatives have, as the resolution indicates, brought some really important changes to our cities across the country. Often people are able to spearhead and normalize what are in retrospect really common sense and necessary changes to our code of law. And it would be a real shame to see what is one of our most potent tools for direct democracy in a city that is really lacking in representation go away. So for all those reasons, all this initiative does is outline the important place that the ballot initiative process has in Washington, express our ANC's disapproval of this particular piece of legislation, and encourage the council to protect the ballot initiative process in Washington, D.C. So I'm putting this forward because I think that ANC 1C should be vocal in protecting our constituents' right to, through direct democracy, make changes to their community, make improvements to their community. Happy to take questions, but that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. Do you have any like, is there any indication what motivated the council members Mendelson and Bonds to introduce their Initiative Amendment Act of 2023? Was it in reaction to do you feel like it was reaction to pass ballot initiatives or concerns about being able to fund if an initiative act like passed?
I don't want to cast too many to try to live in the heads of people I haven't spoken to about an issue directly. I will say that ballot initiatives in DC have often been on sort of the cutting edge of ideas that are often then sort of broadly accepted. And I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe Chair Mendelson and Councilwoman Bonds both voted to overturn the first attempt to end the tip minimum wage in Washington D.C. So I think there might be some concerns about the dollar impact, although I don't believe that any of the ballot initiatives that have been passed in recent years have had a significant cost to DC's government. And the courts have held that outside of the cost of implementing the initiative and the change to the law, these initiatives are not able to, make significant changes to how funding is directed within the government, which is just sort of the intent of that clause. So I don't want to sort of speak for either council member, but there is some record of them having concerns with the ballot initiative process.
And my understanding is that a few other ANC commissions have passed resolutions similar to this.
Yes. I don't have it at my fingertips.
But
at least one other ANC has passed this resolution. And my understanding is that others are considering it in the coming weeks and months. So there are many who are concerned with this potential, what I would view as an overstep on limiting the access to sort of a direct democracy that in DC we're already kind of constrained by not having senators or a real voice. So
absolutely. Yeah, I believe maybe I remember in an email chain, I think the council might move to vote on this act that was introduced by the chairman, but I don't know what exact date.
They were supposed to vote on it last week, and it was postponed until April. I don't remember the exact date, but it's in the coming weeks. It's unclear as to whether or not they'll actually vote on it that date. I believe there's some opposition. Councilwoman Louis George has come out against the bill, and others have expressed some concerns or reluctance. So it's been encouraging to see some councilors recognizing that this is an overstep, and we're hoping that a little more attention paid to it will get more of our representatives to stand up for their constituents' access to the ballot box here.
Absolutely. So, I know that I think we are two of the commissioners, at least that I know of for sure, in our ANC who did sign a letter of support for this, a letter of support to not support the Initiative Amendment Act of 2023. And very much on the same lines that you've already mentioned, Commissioner Van Wy, like that this is a form of democracy. And it's also, to me, if it is on the campaign, if it's on campaigns and movements who want to do initiatives, they get the number of ballot signatures or the number of signatures required to get on the ballot, then it is up to the various different campaigns or those are for or against it to educate voters about what they're voting for and to provide that information. And I think that's part of the democratic process. And that's just the kind of work we do. And voters want information and they want information on what they vote on. And if initiatives get on the ballot and voters have something to vote on, then it's on those various different parties to help educate on what those issues are. And I think that's a really important part of a democracy. So I fully support this. And hope other areas will as well. And I'm going to stop sharing here because it gets awkward. So I guess I would move to, and I think from reviewing, I don't have any recommended changes to it. And I know I like that it's been updated to just reflect that it's from our 1C ANC, but I don't see any changes, or I don't have any recommended changes that we would make to the draft that you already have. So I would move to support this resolution, unless there's any other comment or question.
No, I will second that motion. If I'm
Okay,
allowed to second my own motion
I know.
or my own,
I
my own.
second it. I'll second
Yeah,
it.
okay. Maybe I'll make the motion and you second it. Yeah, I don't know how the rules work, but
Right.
whatever's the most allowable. Peter, the chair will tell us later the best
Yes.
version of that.
Right. All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, awesome. We will move this. So this will move to the full ANC meeting for 1C next month for a final vote from, or final questions or vote from the commissioners. And then this additional item that we have for our agenda, it's as a ANC, we've been sort of going back and forth about recommendations we'd like to submit to the DC Council as well as the Mayor's Office about recommendations for the FY25 budget. It's not a specific resolution that we're putting through. It's more to help brainstorm or put together some thoughts and ideas, sort of to coalesce that and have sort of some public meeting about it and some public input about it. So we in our ANC 1C, where did it go? A particular thing, and I can show this. In particular, what we've, sorry, there we go. Particular areas that we've discussed in our previous ANC meetings and sort of lists of working items that we were sort of playing around or putting up for consideration is really sort of a focus on, what we know are a list of expenditures, like that are costs for the district, but also thinking about more innovative ways or helping to encourage discussion about potential like revenue sources. We do know that the district, along with many other jurisdictions, are up against some really tight fiscal budgets as things cycle. And so we do think it's really important as part of our list of thinking about not, it's always easy to ask for money, or it's always easy to come with a list of things you want money to be spent on, but it's also important to think about like potential revenue sources and what are some potentials for that. And so in general, like we've always, as an ANC, because we are in Adams Morgan, the things that sort of stand out for us is always of key interest are public safety, small business retention, and neighborhood beautification. And so in no particular order, some of the things that we've sort of solidified around is, funding efforts to help with the streetery infrastructure in our community, because that's been such a popular thing within Adams Morgan and something that we know residents really enjoy and also brings visitors to our community. And so we do sort of want to work towards or ask for funds or support for sort of a more uniform barrier system for those businesses that elect to keep a streetery. To a big thing that has come up in a lot of meetings, and I know is of concern, particularly to our commissioners on the west side of Adams Morgan, is there's a lot of erosion happening at Kalorama Park, and so allocating funding to help to help with the erosion problems there. These are a couple items here that we could either recommend as part of the budget or as our chairperson has mentioned that it could be something that we just do as a specific ask in and work direct a specific ask to the council and work more directly with the Department of Recreation. Those are specific, but I think the thing that we were thinking about more is particularly about the revenue sources. So I know some of our commissioners have talked about, examining like the additional marginal increase in taxes on the wealthiest tax filers in the district and sort of building that off of the Tax Fairness Amendment Act. There's been some analysis about, particularly from, I think, the DC Fiscal Policy Institute, that has made this particular recommendation, and something that we felt it would be important for our council and the mayor to also consider. And sort of some discussion about the business activities tax. So those who are incorporated outside of DC but conduct business within DC, are there particular revenue sources that we should be considering there? I'm going to stop there in case Commissioner Van Wy has comments, and also so I can get a drink of tea.
I will tap you out, Chair Laughlin. Yes, so Commissioner Michael Horowitz and I have been working to examine the recommendations put forth by a couple of tax organizations that look at state and local taxes, and specifically folks who spend a lot of time examining DC taxes and potential alternative sources for revenue. We have unfortunately not been able to have a longer conversation to get a series of really specific recommendations outside of what's in the document. Our intent is to connect this weekend and have a potential amendment for inclusion when we vote on this as a full council or commission. So we still want to, especially as we're talking about, as we just discussed with the great student activists pushing for a Green New Deal for schools, to try to find ways to avoid having to make these challenging cuts to really important programs. And I think the only way to do that is by looking at new sources of revenue or existing sources of revenue and whether they could be more effective. So we'll have some potential language for inclusion as an amendment to this letter. But we're very excited to be putting this forward and making sure that the council hears from representatives from our ANC on budget priorities. And I guess the other thing I'll say is, and I was looking at the document earlier today, and I didn't know exactly where this would fit, but including something to stress our vocal support for avoiding any cuts to schools that would result in reduced faculty or anything along those lines, when our schools are already really suffering a serious funding crisis and we're in a challenging issue with truancy that is driving a lot of issues across the city. I don't think the solution is firing 200 staff across city schools. And so making sure that we examine alternative solutions to our financial problems would be something that I would like to be seen in this letter.
I added a very generic, just said with school funding. And again, this list is more to help. There's Johnny. Sean, I see Johnny now on the list of attendees. So we'll see if sorry, just reading that. So like I said, this isn't the official, our goal would be that as a commission, last year, this is sort of a sample of what we sent to the council members based on for the fiscal year 2024. So we replicated some of those, but we were thinking more like, particularly with what Commissioner Van Wy was just alluding to. We talk a lot about the expenditures that we want to support, but we don't often sort of highlight or think about more equitable ways that we could be finding revenue sources. So I think with that, based on some suggestions that I've seen from some of the other commissioners that noted on this, when it comes to like DC park related, I think that's something that we don't necessarily have to put into the text of what we'd like supported in the fiscal year 2025 budget, but something that we should just work more directly with the DC Parks and Recreation to get their recommendations, see where it is within their plans, and see how we can move forward on that. Does that sound like a reasonable thing to sort of strike from our list of recommendations?
I'm sorry, Chair Laughlin, you cut out for a second. I had some bad reception. Could you say that one more time?
So we have on our list of expenditures, particularly like signage for the Carolyn Lorette Park, and there's one other that the Commissioner Wood had mentioned, that it's something that it might be better that if we work directly with the DC Parks and Recreation, and maybe we could focus more of our efforts on other things that are, when we could remove those items, because we could just focus more on working with the DC Parks and Recreation and not necessarily have them as a list of recommendations we have for the fiscal year 25 budget.
My only question is there any reason to not do both? Is that money not included within the DC budget? I don't have any objections. I just don't want to leave anything on the table if we're looking for a couple of different avenues to try to make requests. But if it's not necessarily germane or not as effective, I'm open to it.
Okay, I think that's a good point. Hi, Commissioner Jones, are you able to hear us? We're just sort of going over, we've already covered a couple of the other items on our agenda. We're just sort of brainstorming and talking out loud about some of the items that we've put on our recommendations for the fiscal year 2025 budget and what we'd recommend from ANC 1C, because some of these items would definitely more directly affect our commission area, and just sort of items we'd like to highlight to the council members, and hope there will be support in the budget for them.
First, let me apologize for being late.
No worries. I think Commissioner Van Wy brought it. So we can, I think, mention to the ANCs and to Commissioner Wood that it maybe doesn't hurt to have it in both places, both the work with DC Parks and Recreation, but also see if there is an actual line item or support for some of these projects for some of the public space in our community. Do we know anything? So did the mayor's budget come out? I thought it had been delayed.
My understanding is that the budget request came out within the last 2 days.
Oh, okay.
It's very, very topical.
Okay.
Which is why, there was that cut from schools that I wanted to address, and I haven't had a chance to really go through it.
Yeah.
But I do think that the mayor's budget came out very, very recently. So it's actually very topical that this will be a piece of conversation at our full committee meeting next week, because we do have something to be in response to.
I have seen information circulating about the cuts to the school funding. I just didn't know if there were any other. Do we know anything? Have there been any mentions for the circulator, or has that not been brought up for this budget? Maybe they've left it alone.
It's probably out there, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think if that's been brought up again, like it was in the last year's budget, we would need to advocate to keep the funding for the circulator again.
Yeah, absolutely. Any cuts to any of the buses that come through our commission, I would want to really push back hard against.
And I do have a note from Brian, who's with the Adams Morgan bid, and they're in some discussions about some of the things they're doing for the streeteries, and I will circle back with them to sort of get any other information and also any ways that we can support our streeteries in Adams Morgan area. Commissioner Jones, did you have
No,
anything?
you were talking about pushing back on there was a suggestion that about the what's that bus? The
circulator. Yeah.
There was some, hasn't that been put in or?
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, drink your tea, Chair Laughlin. Last year there was last year there was a push to eliminate one of the circulator routes that would have gone through our commission. We expressed strong concerns with that, wanted to make sure that the circulator continued to run and folks could benefit from that excellent public transit source, and they ended up refunding the circulator. We were talking about whether or not they were making another attempt to remove funding for the circulator, which we didn't know the answer to just yet.
Okay.
But if there are any attempts to either reduce or eliminate the circulator, or the 92 or the 96 or the L2 or the 42 or the 43, I would want to push back hard against those, as so many people in our community really need that bus or those buses.
Oh, I certainly agree. Have we sent letters to the appropriate parties saying just what we just said, that we supported?
Not yet, because I think we have to look through the budget more to see if that was mentioned. I think what's been most talked about and seems to be one of the bigger cuts was to the DCPS funding. So I think since it only came out a couple days ago, we need more time, but we should see what impact that might have on the schools local to ANC 1C. So okay, I don't know what impact this could have on Marie, Reed, or Cook, but we should certainly look into that.
And so, Commissioner Jones, we're currently just reviewing a draft to send to the full commission that we would vote on more formally next week. So right now, this is we're talking about what else we would want to add. It's very rough. We're going to get it nice and pretty by Wednesday. But and just for your awareness, just before you joined, we had discussed, Commissioner Michael Horowitz and I will be talking this weekend to have some concrete suggestions for revenue raisers to try to make sure that we're not asking the council to if we say don't cut this, we're going to say here's how you could potentially get a little more revenue to make up for some of these shortfalls. So we'll have an amendment for this letter with some language that we suggest to add for Wednesday.
I like that approach. Where is the letter you're making reference to?
I am still not at my laptop.
Yeah. So what I'm doing right now is I'm sort of to help our other commissioners out. I'm going to move the order of these to sort of importance for us in terms of like what I know we've discussed.
I'm looking now. I see.
And that way it'll help. So when we have our full ANC meeting next week, it'll help us be more efficient with our conversation. So this is something that we can discuss as a group. So I moved sort of to the front of the list what we would want to look into and also voice support for is anything around school funding, the sort of pushing back on the proposed cuts to DCPS. I sort of put that as sort of at the top of our list. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds
As long
good to
as it's
me.
in there, yeah.
I put second, the circulator bus, once we sort of look into that more to see what's going on there. I put the Kalorama Park erosion. Again, this might be something we'll work more directly with DC Parks and Recreation, but I do like the idea of like putting it in both places. When I'll only reach out and work more directly with them, but sort of highlight it. Since in the district, we have that constant competition and battle between what is, DC public space versus what's national park space. And, it's really important for us to have the upkeep of what we can actually own and control, because in a lot of our communities, that the public space that the DC PR system takes care of, we have a little bit more control over, but we really need to take very good care of it. I'm going to move the streeteries down a bit because I think the bid has additional like things they're doing to work with DDOT and other groups to sort of support on that. It's certainly something we want there to be support and funding for, but I think we can move it down a little bit in terms of of importance of things we'd like to really highlight. I'll put the signage up to pair it with our other park. And some of these are items I'm not super familiar with because I know they were put on the list by some other commissioners. So I'll keep the streetery sort of at bullet 5. Is there any other, and I don't know much about the ladder truck. That might be something that Peter knows more about.
So the
Oh,
only,
okay. So it's actually the budget's not going to be publicly released until Wednesday. So that might
okay,
be so I think we've heard the inklings about the school funding. I think that's what has sort of leaked out first, or what's being, or there's certainly discussions about it going on.
what was it? What was the name of that school plan you just said? You said school?
There has been discussion and release. There has been the school budget has been released, and there are
Oh.
some major, but the full budget from the mayor for FY25 will not be publicly released until next Wednesday. So that's the night of our ANC meeting.
All right.
So could be good and bad. It'll give us a bit of time from there. I'm gonna move this because it's not as known to me. Are there any?
Why is I'm just curious, why is there an issue of overdose going to be?
This was something that was brought up. I think it was added to the list. I don't know. I think Commissioner Wood may have added that, and maybe we need to. Like I said, these are not very specific right now. They're very loose.
Okay.
But are there any other expenditures that we might want to add to this list so that other commissioners can sort of review and add more specificity to?
Right now, I think that especially because we're not commenting on a specific budget request,
Yeah.
I think broad sort of tentpole requests of, this is what we want to see make sense. If in the coming, in the next week, we get more text, whether other parts of the budget come out, I think we can be in more direct response with more specificity.
Okay. I agree. And this gives us a bit of a place to start. I don't know how common it is in budgets to specify what the revenue sources are, so I think that's what we can sort of pay attention to. But I do think this is something that we as an ANC could contribute and sort of highlight more. And at least if it promotes discussion about it, that's even better. All right, I was keeping it sort of loosey-goosey with that one. I want to mostly just to brainstorm it. I know at our previous ANC meetings, it's always sort of the last item on our agenda, and we never really get much of a chance to talk about it. And I told Commissioner and Chair Wood that we would discuss it at PSE to at least get some of that brainstorming happening so that we could be more efficient in our next full ANC meeting to help move that along. And we also thought that there was going to be a budget out, and there hasn't been, so that's part of it.
Now, I mean, I can comment on any of this, what you have here.
If
Or
there's
any
something
questions?
you think that we should add for other commissioners to sort of think on, yeah. Do you have any broad or specific thing you think we should add?
No, well, I'm looking at the sources, that the revenue sources, and that you make a discrimination between business inside and outside of the city. What about the kind of businesses, like the small business versus, we want to make recommendations about taxing businesses over a certain size or business of a certain type, because you would get more revenue. The bigger the business, the greater the revenue. I'm hinting that I wouldn't want to suggest a burden on small businesses.
Right. I think that I don't know the tax law and around that and what I think that's something hopefully that's a couple of our other commissioners can review more on. But yeah, I agree. We don't want to inflict any additional tax pain on our smaller businesses.
Yeah, Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Michael Horowitz and I are going to talk this weekend about really specific language there. Right now, these are just sort of placeholders and things to explore that have been talked about by other organizations that specialize on tax policy.
Yeah.
And so we want to find the sort of best path to make sure that businesses that are operating within DC and derive a lot of their revenue from DC, but don't necessarily pay a lot of taxes in DC, are supporting the communities that they're in. And I think there's definitely a way to do that and tailor it to make sure that small businesses aren't facing a prohibitive tax burden, but the bigger companies or larger businesses are. So anytime I talk about taxes, I want to make sure they're progressive, not regressive. And we'll make sure that any tax proposal is a progressive tax.
Yeah, I'm remembering when a couple of months ago, when Nadine became a part of our discussion, and there's a discussion around the circulator bus and the issue of paying for it, and she was suggesting, offhandedly, she suggested raising taxes, raising income from ticket collection, and that is in effect a regressive measure, because um, the people with less income pay a greater portion of income getting tickets. On the tickets they have to pay. I mean, it's being picky perhaps, but it's a general approach, and the general approach that perhaps I would want. From the way you're talking, I'm sure that you and Horowitz are going to have that general attitude about making sure, or ensuring to the extent to which you can, that they are progressive and not regressive, as you say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that applies to individuals when it comes to toll roads or raising fare on buses or
Yeah.
the train, or whether it comes to small businesses. And then again, making sure that taxes are both fair and also effectively providing for the social services that we all need.
Okay. And one more thing parenthetically, I remember when Dave Clark was the ward representative for Ward 1. One of the first things he did when he went into office was to eliminate the tax on food. And that was certainly it is that spirit that I'm making reference to. And I hear you saying that you're going to be entertaining that this weekend.
Yeah. So we'll have specific language and a couple of like really discrete policy proposals, as discrete as makes sense to include in this letter, to be sort of voted on as an included amendment, or something that we'll add to the letter to vote on as a whole and make amendable at the meeting on Wednesday, whatever is
Okay.
most appropriate for this particular kind of.
All right.
If there are no other questions, I think like Commissioner Van Wy, if you all want to work from this document to or like when you meet, if you want to put your sort of more specific statements here, then I think Commissioner Wood and I can work together to sort of clean it up to make it more formalized. And the link for that is in our agenda. The link for this particular document is in our agenda.
No, that sounds great. I believe I have this open as a tab
Yes.
on my computer at all
Okay.
times, just to add to whenever I have like 5 minutes. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I just have one more item, more as a reminder. We have just into sharing today. We'll do it one more time. Just a reminder, I think I've seen just to figure out to share the rat survey with others. I will put it in the chat again. I know most of us already have it. But just in case, we have 68 responses so far. I think it's sort of balanced across the ADC areas, or sorry, ANC areas. But it's been really interesting to see the different responses come in and sort of the hot spots. Definitely Ontario Road has been mentioned. So by particularly like Ontario and Euclid. So we know. My hope is that I'm been in contact with the rodent control that is part of Department of Health. And we're trying to see if we can get a Saturday that one of the rodent control experts can come out to do a community walk. They're checking their schedule now to see what Saturdays they have available in the next like 2 months. And once we get that information, we will send out an email and publicly. So anybody in the community is welcome to come along on sort of a community walk. If we're unable to get a Saturday and have to do it during the week, we'll still invite the public for that community walk, but I know that is harder for some people to make during the workday. But the goal would be definitely like either I or one of the other commissioners will be on the weekday walk. We'll take specific notes, and our bigger goal is to sort of help to learn better mitigation for rat control, but also like what steps and resources are available to residents and what steps they should take to use those resources. So it's to be determined. It's in the works. I'd really like to get 100 responses if we can. But we're going to leave this open at least definitely to the end of March, probably a little longer because I want to get 100 responses. And then Peter and I, or Commissioner Wood and I, will work together to sort of collate the responses, put all the information out, and we'll put out like a little mini report so that everyone has access to that as well, particularly for sort of hotspots, because we do want people to know we're seeing the responses. We know we're going to alert those to the Department of Health, but also find ways and recommendations about how you would talk to your building management about dealing with rats. Because for a lot of apartment buildings, the district can't really do anything. It's really on the building management. So like sort of some talking points and what steps you can take to alert your building management and what they need to do. And if it gets really, really bad in that sense, and your building management isn't doing anything, then what district agencies you should be reaching out to and having them come and do an investigation. So fill out the rat survey. And then
I just like to say, it was quick and easy and a lot of fun to fill out that survey. It was the highlight of my week when I did it. So everybody, please have as much fun as I did filling out the rat survey.
Oh, it's a written
easy.
form? It's a written form?
What's that?
It's a written
It's
form?
a Google form. So I threw it in the
Oh, Google
chat,
form. Okay.
Commissioner Jones. I can also, I can send you an email with the link for it for you
Okay.
if you want to share it with others. Because the biggest goal of it is like, so when we get the Department of Health to come out and do a community walk with us, their goal is to have them focus on
I see.
what areas we see having the
Right.
biggest issues.
Okay.
So, and then that way we can get their feedback about, what looks wrong, what could be done better in the area, and then also so that they can market to come out to do some rat work.
Okay. I'm kind of concerned. Well, wherever you have restaurants, of course, you're going to have rats. But I'm concerned about they should bring it up. The barbecue place on Columbia Road, the 1600 block of Columbia Road.
The Federalist Pig?
The Federalist Pig, right. There's not an alley behind it. And I guess we just need to approach them to make sure, because they just doubled their size.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that they have not doubled the likelihood of generating rats, but not that I've heard anything.
Yeah, I haven't either, but doesn't hurt. We could even share it with some of the business owners or check in with them as well. Yeah. Yeah. And I know we have a couple embassies in the area.
Yeah.
Where there's some, and that is it is something that needs to be addressed, but it does go into, unfortunately, a different jurisdiction of how to do some control on that. I know on Mozart Street, there's a particular embassy that has a lot of rat dens in its backyard, like in the fenced area.
Right. The Cuban embassy, they have these famous barbecues. And but also in the building, because I'm right next to the Cuban embassy. And there was a rat problem, and I didn't know it. That we were having some mice very irregularly, but apparently they called in a exterminator and did a thorough search. They found 95 rats, but fortunately, fortunately they were able to clean them up. I don't know if they were paying rent, but they were living there. But, they cleaned it up. So it was good.
Well, it's the one thing we can be united on. Getting rid of rats. We may have comments about everything else from buses to parking, but we're united against rats.
Right.
So, all right. Well, that is the end of our agenda. I thank you all for joining tonight. And I will see you all at our next full ANC meeting.
Okay, and thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Chair.